Okay, it's 1 minute past. Let's go ahead and get started. Have a lot to cover today. So good afternoon for most of you, maybe morning for some of you. Welcome to today's session of Training Bytes. If you have any questions during the presentation, if you look at the top of your Teams screen, you will see a Q&A box. So any questions, just put them in the Q&A. If you don't see a Q&A box, that's okay. There's also a chat bubble. So if you don't have Q&A, just go ahead and put your questions in the chat. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. Good afternoon. My name is Gina Thomas. I'm the training manager at C&K Systems, and your host is for Training Bytes, a digestible approach to counterpoint training. Joining me today is Marty Katz. He's a project lead here at C&K Systems, and he's going to be around to answer questions.
Hi there.
Hello, Marty, and thank you for attending. So working with Counterpoint, especially been working for a little while, or maybe even just a short while, and you're doing some type of process and you think, my God, there's got to be a better way. I mean, I really would like to know how many SKUs I have in inventory without finding the report that I need to run to see how many SKUs there are. Or I notice that when I do a preview in a lookup, my columns don't line up very well. My column headers are maybe left justified and my data is right justified. And it's just very, very messy looking. Or in my daily auditing, to make sure my associates are posting their transactions, like transfers and receivings and adjustments, you may find yourself running an edit list, and that's a lot of edit lists to run. So there is a better way, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Tips and tricks. I'm going to show you some shortcuts and time savers. I'm going to show you how to fix those quick reports so the columns line up nicely. We'll talk about the Work Center, which is a one-stop shop for auditing, and more. So first, I'd like to talk about help within Counterpoint. So many times I have people ask me about the official how-to NCR manual, which there is one, and there's also one in Counterpoint, just by simply pressing F1. So when you look at the table of contents here on the left, Counterpoint fundamentals, getting started, point of sale, these are all straight from the how-to fundamentals manual. Also in F1, which you really don't see in your fundamentals manual, there is release notes, an installation guide, an update guide, service pack installation guide for those of you that are a little more techie. Something that's very helpful in the release notes. Let's say you upgraded from another version of Counterpoint. Maybe you're running 8.5.2 and you're upgraded to 8.5.7. And I get this question a lot. So what's different? Well, if you go to the release notes, you can see what was different in every service pack or upgrade since 8.5.2 all the way up to 8.7 or 8.5.7. There's also the official NCR website where there's a knowledge base. And so you can see I have the URL here, the official URL, userportal.counterpointpos.com, or you can just Google it. Google to find it. You can access the knowledge base. Again, the official NCR knowledge base. You can even suggest a feature, and I'll show you how to do that later. In order to access this website, you do need to know two things. You need to know your Counterpoint registration number, and I'll show you how to find that, and your zip code. That's pretty easy. If you need help from C&K, you can call us at our toll-free number, extension 1. You can email helpdesk@CKSystem. Notice that's singular, cksystem.com. Or you can log a ticket directly through our ticket portal called ConnectWise. If you don't have access to the portal, just log a support ticket by emailing or calling, and a technician will help set you up. No matter which method you use to log a support ticket, phone call, email, portal, we need some information. Your name, your company name, your phone number, and a detailed description of what you need. So A lot of times I look into the triage portion of ConnectWise, and people will say something like, printer issue, I need help, general question. So be more specific. What's the printer issue? What kind of help do you need? If you're descriptive, we can quickly assign your ticket to the appropriate level technician. So do be descriptive. If you're getting error messages, let us know about error messages. If there's an issue with the printer, what's wrong? Is it not working? Is it not printing? Is it, cutting off on one side, cutting off in the middle? Let us know. You do need to know the version of Counterpoint that you're running, particularly right now, because earlier versions of Counterpoint are going to be unable to get support from NCR. So in this screenshot, I went to About Counterpoint, and it's easy to do. If you're at the main menu of Counterpoint, you just right-click on the title bar, you get a flyout, you go to About Counterpoint, and then you can see the product version. And in my screenshot, 857, and the service pack below that, 8.5.70. This version of Counterpoint will not be supported at the end of the year. So if you have anything below that, you need to upgrade. Very important. So you might want to check that today. So date shortcuts. Any date field anywhere in Counterpoint. If you type a T, you'll get today's date. If you type an M, you'll get the first day of the month. H, you'll get the last day of the month. And there's kind of a method to the madness here. So if you think of the word month, the first letter is M, the last letter is H. M first day of the month, H last day of the month. The same for W. W is going to get you the first day of the week. K will get you the last day of the week. Year. Y for the first day of the year. R for the last day of the year. Just a little bit of a time saver. Any date field, anywhere in Counterpoint. Some cool things to know. Maybe you want to know how many SKUs are in your inventory or how many customer records you have. You can actually go to an item record or customer record, right-click at the very top on the title bar, and you can see the table information, which will tell you how many records are there. Something else that you can see by right-clicking on the title bar is last maintenance information. This will tell you the date, time, and user that last touched and edited that record. It won't tell you what they did, just the fact that they made a change and saved it. Margins. I am often surprised at how many people I work with that don't use this great feature. You can set margins at a category or a subcategory level, and the end result is this great at-a-glance view in table view of your item records where you can see arrows and dashes. So at a glance, I can tell things with a red arrow are not meeting a minimum margin. Things with a dash are meeting a minimum margin, but not a target margin. And items with a green arrow are meeting a target margin. This is important because you can easily identify product that maybe you're not charging enough for, or maybe the vendor's charging you too much, or maybe your margins are a little too aggressive or not aggressive enough. And we'll take a look at that later. So to go into your column designer in a table view or in a lookup, you can right click. In a lookup, you can go to options, select your column designer. However, there's kind of a slightly quicker way to get there. So whether you're in table view or a lookup, if you look to the upper left corner next to the item number column, you'll see a little square. And if you click on that little square, it'll bring up your column designer. Just one click. I had an email earlier this week where somebody said, when I go into my table view, I don't see my entire inventory. I only see a few hundred lines. And that's a correct observation. And that is by design for performance purposes. So if you really want to see your entire inventory, go to a lookup. When you're in a lookup, You can go to Options, Show All, and that will load your entire inventory. But there's kind of a gotcha here. If you have just a few thousand lines, that's great. But if you have, say, 200,000 lines of inventory, probably wouldn't recommend doing show all. It'll significantly slow down your system and everybody else on your system. This is why we configure the table view and the lookup to only return a couple of hundred rows so that performance is optimal. Okay, so if you look to the upper right, I have a report sample here. You can see my mini backpack from the golf category for $65.99. But notice how the data is right justified under the price column, and the price one header is left justified, and the description's being cut off by, the item category. There's actually a way you can fix that. You go into your column designer and you click on the tab Column Options. You can actually select something that you want to fix, like in this example, it's the last sale date, and the title is aligned left and the data is aligned left. So you can maybe right align both of them or center align both of them, but it'll clean up the report nicely. We all know that when you're in a lookup and you preview, you can click on the little envelope at the upper left, and you can export that preview to many other applications, Adobe, XLS, HTML, Word. However, if you just want a CSV file, you don't have to go through all those steps. So in a table view or a lookup, if you just right-click on the screen, anywhere where there's data, you can select Export Data, and Counterpoint will export all that data to a CSV. And you can even choose where to save it, which is pretty handy. Now, the Work Center, which is under System Work Center, is a one-stop shop. A couple things that you want to look out for here. You want to make sure you don't have any unposted transactions. So if you see a receiving in here, an inventory adjustment, a transfer out, a quick assembly, they're unposted. That's why they're here. Now you'll also see purchase orders. Purchase orders are posted, by the way, and you'll see some purchase request. And I don't get too concerned about purchasing documents because they don't have any effect on inventory. But I do get concerned about unposted inventory adjustments, receivings, transfers. So you can actually look at the documents through the Work Center. You can post the documents through the Work Center. You can delete the documents through the Work Center. You can even create new documents in the Work Center. Like if you want to create a new purchase request or a new receiving. And we'll take a look at that later. You can receive against multiple POs when you're purchasing and receiving. You placed 2 orders with the vendor. They took both those orders, shipped it to you all at once, so it's on one pallet. So you could receive against the first PO, and then within the same receiver, receive against the second PO. The rules are the POs must be for the same location and from the same vendor. So here's a filtering pro tip. I had this question just yesterday. Gina, I'm getting ready to do physical inventory. I want to make sure everything on my floor has a barcode, and I found a bunch of random items that don't have barcodes. And when I go into the item label filter, I just have a range of items to choose from. And I want to choose, I want to select 10 or 15 or so just random items. If you right-click on the filter to customize it, and you click on the parameter is exactly, which is the default, and choose is in, you'll be able to select up to 3 random items. And if you need more than 3, just click on the next line down, item number is in, next line down, item number is in. You can do that for categories, subcategories, and primary vendors as well. This is Marty's favorite preference. So your user preference, and I know everyone's run into this, you got to post something and you get the dreaded message, another user is working on this batch, and you're like, why? There's no one else in Counterpoint. Well, more than likely, you have the switch allow multiple form instances enabled, which means you create a receiving and you save it, and then you minimize it. And then you want to create another receiving. Counterpoint's going to let you. But when you go to post that receiving, Counterpoint's going to say, another user's working on this batch because it sees the minimized transaction. So we recommend unchecking the switch, allow multiple form instances. And again, this is a user level setting. Most of you have offline ticket entry. Some of you use it all the time and some of you don't. If you don't use offline ticket entry until you need it, like when your server goes down and you really need it, and then you find out it's not working, it's not very helpful. So if you're not using offline all the time, you do need to test it from time to time, or at least check on the connection and the data status, which is an icon in your system tray. And I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. In order to test your offline ticket entry, you need to open a drawer in offline, ring some sales in offline, let the data sync down to the live version. And then in the live version, you can either void the sales or post the sales, but do test it at least once a week. Doesn't take long and it's worth it. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the software. So I'm going to start with the help screen. I'm just going to press F1. And I'm just going to widen up this window a little bit. So you can see over here on the left, release notes. Now, again, that example, I upgraded from 8.5.2. So you can see here in this entire list, it shows you everything that was introduced since 8.5.2 all the way up to the latest release. So very handy to have. And then down below, fundamentals, the how-to for inventory, customers, purchasing, and even more than you would find in the fundamentals manual, like information about data migration and the Counterpoint options, multi-site, hardware, customizations, or you can search. If I just come up here to the upper right to the search, remember I showed you those date shortcuts earlier in the slide, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't get to write all that down. No worries. If I just type date shortcuts here, press my enter key, and there we go. Date shortcut keys, right there's the link. And here's the chart. Okay, so don't forget about your help screen. Another resource you have is the official NCR website. And remember I mentioned earlier, you really need to know your registration and your zip code. So how do you find your registration? If you go to Setup, System, Registration, I'll bring this down here so you can see it. You need this serial number in order to log into the website. Now, while we're here, I mentioned earlier, you really need to know what version of Counterpoint you're on. Not for access to the portal in particular, but for your access to Counterpoint and support and NCR support towards the end of the year. So you can go to the title bar at the very top, you can right click and go to About. And you can see here I have the latest and greatest 8.572. So if you have 8.571, you're okay. If you have 8.570, you need to upgrade. Another way to check the version of Counterpoint is up here in the very upper left-hand corner. It's this little Counterpoint icon. Just click on it. You get that same flyout, and then just go to About. Okay. So now I know my serial number, and I know my zip code. I'm ready to access the official NCR website. So I'm just going to bring my friend Google up here, and I don't remember the URL, so I'm just going to type Counterpoint and user portal. So you can see the official URL up here, userportal.counterpointpos.com, but I can just click on this link too. So now here at the sign-in screen, I have to enter my serial number. That's the one we found found under Setup System, Registration. Then I'm going to put in my zip code. And I'm going to log in. Now, let's say you want to make a feature or an enhancement suggestion. Now, before you suggest a new feature to NCR, check with us first to make sure it's not something that's already available. And if we discuss it and we say, I'm sorry, that feature is not available in Counterpoint. Yes, I would love to generate transfer advice based on sales. It's just not there. I really wish I could print my labels from a price sheet before I apply the price sheet. It's just not there. So to give a suggestion, and they kind of have this buried, so you have to watch where you click. You go to support right here, and then you just come here to NCR support. Don't click on any other flyout. Just click on NCR support. And then when you scroll down, see how it's buried? Here it is right here. And then you just fill out the form. If you want to access the knowledge base, you go to support, NCR Counterpoint, and knowledge base. And then you'll be redirected, and that's fine. So I'll just click here to navigate. Now, if you look to the left-hand side, the knowledge base is organized by subject matter. So you've got some knowledge base articles about CP Mobile if you have CP Mobile, about hardware, and then Counterpoint itself. You can also just search for what you're looking for. Like I've been getting a message about my system date. Something about my system date is weird when I try to post. So if you type the word system or system date, you'll go to a knowledge base article. You can click on the link and you can see the solution. Okay, or maybe I'm running a merchandise analysis report and I don't understand how Counterpoint calculates turns. Got to spell it right though. So you can see here, Counterpoint will even give you the formula it uses to calculate that KPI. So the knowledge base can be very, very helpful. Let's talk about date shortcuts. Any date field anywhere in Counterpoint. So I'm just going to go to inventory items. And I'm just going to find an item. So here's a date field right here, status date. Now, if I just want to go to yesterday, I don't have to put anything here. I just type a minus. So it can be a completely blank field and I just type a minus. And if I keep pressing minus, it'll go backwards. If I want to go into the future for whatever reason, plus sign, and that's Shift plus on my keyboard. And again, if I keep pressing it, it'll go forward. If I type a T, as in today, I get today's date. Or if I want the first day of the month, M is the first letter in month, first day of the month. H, last letter in month, last day of the month. Y, first day of the year. R for the last day of the year. Okay. Oh, and I don't need to save changes. Thank you. Okay, so I am going to go into a lookup. And I had mentioned if you don't have a ginormous inventory, a few hundred, couple thousand lines, and you want to see the entire inventory loaded in this screen, just go to Options, Show All. Now, if you keep an eye on your scroll bar, I don't have much data, so just you're not going to see my scroll bar change that much. But if I go to Options, Show All, now it did shrink a little bit. So now I have my entire inventory. If I want to see how many SKUs I have or how many customer records, and you can play a little game with your staff. Hey, somebody guess how many SKUs we have or how many customer records we have, but don't go over or you lose, kind of like Price is Right. So on a customer record or an item record, if you just right click, table information, you can see I have 143 SKUs, not much at all. Now I'm going to call up an item here. So I noticed that my price one changed on this item record, or my category changed, or my vendor, but I didn't do it. So what is going on? Well, a little bit of a hint. You can go to your title bar and right click, go to last maintenance information. You'll see who touched this record, what day and what time. Now, it does not tell you what they did, just the fact that they made some type of edit and saved it. Now, I want to speak to logins into Counterpoint because I see a lot of people using generic logins. And this is an argument for not using generic logins. So if I log into Counterpoint as Gina and I walk away from the computer, and then Sally walks up to the computer and she makes an edit to an item or a customer record, it's going to be stamped with Gina's name because Gina's the one logged into Counterpoint. So really, if you need to walk away from Counterpoint, walk away from your desk, close out of Counterpoint so that there's some accountability for the next person that logs in. Next, I'm going to go to my table view. And we're going to talk about margins. So I have these fancy arrows. And like I said, at a glance, I can see items that are not meeting margin or just barely meeting margin. So I'm going to hover over this dash. And you can see the flyout saying, well, you're getting 54% margin with this item, but the minimum is 50. You're meeting the minimum, but not the target of 65. Therefore, you get a dash. If I hover over the green arrow, oh, well, you're making 75% margin on this item and your minimum's 50. You're clearly exceeding that and you're meeting or exceeding the target of 70. Therefore, you get a green arrow. Now, if I hover over the red arrow, well, you're only getting 33% margin, not even meeting the minimum. Down arrow. It's also useful on the single page view. So if I come here to this single page view, just by clicking on the table view again, maybe, maybe not. There we go. Oh, I clicked too many times. Must be patient. So here on the item record itself, just on the single item view, see I have a dash here, right? Let me pick something that has got a red arrow. Here we go. So I'm just going to click right on the red arrow. So what you can see here are some suggestions from Counterpoint. Well, if you want to meet the minimum margin of 50, because that's what's on the category, you really should be charging $40. And you can click on use this price if you like. You really want to hit the target of 70, you should be charging this. And again, you can click on use this price. But right now, you're getting 33% because you're charging this. So I could either, use the buttons, or I could free type a new price, or I could cancel out of this window and I could just put a new price here. Let's put in 50. Let's put in $60. So even at $60, I'm getting 66% margin, not my target is 70. So how do you set those margins? It's very easy to do. You're going to go to Setup, Inventory, Categories. And I'm just going to use my right-facing arrow. When you select a category, there's a lot of noise on this page. When it comes to setting margins, so you can see those graphics in table view, we only care about 2 items here. We care about price 1 minimum, and we care about target. Everything else, like the price 2, 3, 4, 5, that's all for price sheets. So all you care about is price 1 minimum and target. Now, I have an apparel category here where I have a minimum of 50%, but a target of 70. But, I carry men's clothing, I carry women's clothing, I carry children's clothing. And my men's, I don't get quite as good a margin. So I need to lower the bar a little bit just for men's. So if you want a margin to supersede the category, then you have to define it on the subcategory. So I'm going to close out of here. I'm going to come to subcategory. I'm going to find my apparel department and men's subcategory. So here I could say, In apparel in general, I want 50%, but for men's, I can probably only get 45. And in general, for apparel, I like 70% as a target, but for men's, I'll be lucky to get 55. Establishing margins, changing margins does not change the structure of your database. So it's not changing any integrity or anything. All it's doing is giving you the ability to look at your inventory on a single page, if you would, with arrows and dashes to quickly identify items that you may need to be charging more for, paying less for, or maybe you need to make the margins a little less aggressive or a little more aggressive. You can change margins all day long just to look at results. Doesn't hurt anything. It's totally tolerant. Okay, I'm going to go back to items. And I'm just going to go into my lookup here. And I'm just going to pull up my default lookup. Not that one, this one. Default, by the way, is default for everyone in the organization. So anytime you see default, anytime anyone goes into a lookup, this is what they see. They see the default. But notice here that my price one isn't lined up nicely, just like in that screenshot. And so when I preview to get my quick report, see how my description and item number are kind of crashing into each other and into the item category, and the price one column header doesn't match up with the data? It's easily fixed. So I'm going to escape out of here. Now, first of all, the description. If I just simply come here and widen this up, that fixes that problem. So when I go to preview, today, sometime today, here we go. So now my description column is fixed, but my item number column is still a little crashing into that. So that's easy too. So I'll just widen this up. Now to fix the price data, I am going to have to go into my column designer. So I'm going to click on that little square over here, or I could go to options, column designer, or I could right click and go to column designer. It's up to you. Now I'm going to go to the column options tab. I'm going to click on price one. And over here on the right, title, column title, price one, left justified. I'm going to center justify it. Data, align right. I'm going to center justify that as well. And I'm going to click OK. So now in the preview, see how nice it looks here? Right on the screen in the lookup. Now I'm going to go to the actual report preview. Looks so much better, much easier to read. Now remember, anytime you make a modification, whether it's in a lookup or table view, with your column designer, it's temporary unless you save it. So if you want to save this, you can go to options and save. Now, if I click on save, it's going to save this as the default for everyone in the organization. So if I don't want to do that, I can save it as a different name. Gina's item list. So now anytime anyone comes into this lookup, they see the default. But if I want to see Gina's item list, I can use this drop down, choose Gina's item list, and there it is. From a lookup and from a table view, you can actually export directly to a CSV. So if I'm in a lookup and I want to send something to a CSV, I'm just going to right click anywhere where there's data. See, it doesn't work over here. If I click over here where there's no data. So right click, export data. And the Counterpoint wants to save the CSV in this like really, really long path. That'll be just a lot of clicking. So you can save it anywhere you like. Maybe you've got a dedicated folder, you want to stick it on your desktop and you just give it some type of name. And notice it automatically saves as a CSV. Now I can do the same thing in my table view. Okay, I just right click, export data, same thing. Where do you want to save it and what do you want to call it? So I'm just going to save it to my desktop. and I'll just call it Gina's item list. And then I'm just going to click on save. Now, if you are exporting to a CSV, you get a little spinny circle up here. See how it's spinning? So don't short circuit it, leave it alone. And again, if you have several thousand lines of inventory, that might take a little while to load. I'm going to close out of here. I'm just going to go to my item list, which is right here. And there you go. So exporting directly to CSV from a lookup or a table view. And there's my list. You can also export your zooms. I love zooms. They give me some nice at-a-glance information about item performance, without running a report. So I'm just going to select an item. I'm going to go into my zoom. That's right here on the item number line, that little Z. And then I'm going to click on monthly history here. And so you can, this is what I like about this. I can see sales. It defaults to sales. So I can see net sales, month over month, year over year, location over location for 3 years. I can see other values as well. You can look at returns, units sold, how many tickets, average ticket, percent returns. I can also export this half of the screen. So if I just right click, export to Microsoft Excel, and if you look over here on my taskbar, right down here next to my system tray, Counterpoint sent that half of the zoom to Excel for me. And I don't need to save that. So next, let's talk about the Work Center. One-stop shop to look for unposted receivings, transfers, inventory adjustments, not sales though. If you want to make sure all your sales are posted, run a point of sale ticket edit list. But for everything else, you can go to System, you can go to Work Center. Now this always takes a moment to load, so that's not unusual. The Work Center will default to the work group you're logged into. So I logged into work group 1, which is my main work group. The Work Center defaults to that. If you have more than one store, it's very difficult to change in the Work Center. Sometimes it just spins out on you. So rather than waste all that time, if you need to look at another work group, just log out of Counterpoint, log back into Counterpoint for that work group. When you go to the Work Center, it'll default to the work group you're logged into. So right off the bat here, I see inventory adjustments that are not posted. I see purchase orders. Now these are posted. I see some purchase request. Again, these don't, purchase orders, purchase requests, they don't affect inventory. But I don't like when I see really, really old documents, so you can clean them up from here. I can also see receiving and transfers. Now, if I want to look at the document, I can click right on this link under the document number column. And Counterpoint takes me right to that document. And here, if it's something that's really, really old, or maybe I've done an inventory since then, I might be inclined to delete it. Or somebody just forgot to post. Maybe they were getting that this batch is already in use message. I could just come here and post. The same with my purchasing request. So if I come down here to a purchase, this purchase request is awfully old. I don't know why it's still here and why no one's processed it. Oh, it's from FootJoy. You know what? We don't buy from that vendor anymore. So I can just come in here and delete it. You can also create transactions in here. So if I go to new document, this is everything you can create here. Maybe I wanted to do an inventory adjustment from the Work Center. Just use this drop down, click on inventory adjustment, takes me right to that screen. So the Work Center is extremely versatile. Now notice I do have a unposted transfer out. For those of you that do transfer out and transfer ins, there's always a pitfall there. People, usually remember to do their transfer outs and post them, but they don't necessarily remember to do the transfer ins at the destination. So something that I just want to point out to you. because you'll stumble on these by accident from time to time. So if I go to an item record, let's say I'm just looking at this item, and I zoom in on it because I want to see the performance of the item. If you zoom in on an item and you see this transfer button lit up, it means there's a transfer out for this item that's been posted, but there's no corresponding transfer in. So you might want to investigate. So if I click on this button, I can see, this is a transfer number. Here's where it was from, transfer to the east, and 4 units of the mini backpack. Then I can call the east and find out what's going on. Okay, receiving against multiple POs. Remember that it has to be the same location, same vendor. So I'm going to go to purchasing, receivings, enter. And Counterpoint just wants to be slow this afternoon. Okay, I'm going to auto assign. I'm going to select a PO to receive against. Click OK. And I'm just going to go to lines just to verify. And there's everything. I'm going to select another PO. Now you can't do multiple POs with a multi-store PO. So you can't receive against multi-store POs, more than one PO. So this is only good for drop ships. So I can go to select PO. I can select another PO. Oh, that's an allocated. See how it says yes there? Not the one I want. Here's a good one. Let's choose that one. Okay, and then Counterpoint just adds those items. And you can receive it against as many POs as you like. Probably be unlikely you'd have more than 2 to receive against. Go ahead and exit. Okay, the is in filter. Now again, you can do this in any filter, anywhere in Counterpoint. So I'm going to just go find an item. And I'm not just going to print a label for this one item. So that's an asterisk, by the way. That means an asterisk means print a label for my entire inventory. Well, I don't want to do that either. So that's where the filter comes in. Now I need random items or random categories or random subcategories. And you can see here by default, the item number selection is a range. So that's not very helpful. So I'm just going to right click and customize. Item number between. I'm going to click on the word between. I'm going to choose is in. And see how I get 3 little question marks here? And I just simplified the filter so I can pick 3 random items. Well, what if I have more than 3 random items? Well, that's fine. Go customize again. Click on the next line, choose item number. Changes exactly to is in. And you have to change the Boolean logic on the line above it from and to or. So let's say I need more than 9. I'm going to click here and choose item number. I'm going to change is exactly to is in. Go to the line above it and change the Boolean logic to or. Now I'm going to simplify the filter. And so now I can select up to 9 random items, or it can be 6, or it can be 5, but I can have up to 9. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. Okay, user preferences. So this is the one that causes all kinds of problems when posting. So if you look to the upper right, it says Gina, sysadmin, right? It's a group I belong to. I'm just going to click on this little down arrow here and go to my user preferences. And I'm going to find Gina in here. I'm going to go to the user interface. And right now I have allow multiple form instances, meaning I can go into a module like inventory adjustments or receiving enter, and I can open up multiple separate documents. And this is where you get into trouble. So I'm going to go to adjustments. I'm going to go to inventory adjustment center. And I have one here. I'm just going to make a little change to it. And I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to minimize it. Okay. Now I'm going to create another one. So I go to Inventory Adjustments, Enter. I'm just going to select an item. Oh, I think I clicked on the zoom by accident. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so there's my Pepsi. And I'm going to do a downward adjustment of 3. Now I'm going to post. So Counterpoint kind of leads me on here. Hey, sure you want to post? Why, yes, I am. Wah, wah. This document cannot be posted. Another user's working on it. Really, another user isn't working on it. It's minimized. So if I click OK and close out of here, it's minimized down here. And that's why I can't post that other adjustment. So I'm just going to exit from here. Now I'm going to turn off that switch. And again, remember, this is user specific, so it's not global. If you want to fix everyone's user record, you have to touch them one at a time. Let's find Gina in here. And I'm going to uncheck allow multiple form instances and watch what happens. So now when I go to inventory adjustments, I'm going to change this and I'm going to save this. So notice this is my Gucci keychain with steel, right? I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to minimize it. Now later on, I go to do another inventory adjustment and I click on this. See how it brings up my minimized window? So that way I can never create multiple transactions that are going to all be minimized and cause problems posting. So I'll just go ahead and post that. Okay, and last but not least, and see how there are no evil messages. Ta-da! Offline ticket entry. Most of you have offline ticket entry. Some of you use it all the time, some of you don't. Some of you only use it when your server goes down. So if you're in that camp of, I only use it when my server goes down, this is for you. If you come over here to the system tray, click on that little caret. This icon here, it looks like a big white square with a faint blue circle. Just going to click on it. So usually when this comes up, it's all collapsed like that, and that's fine. So you can see my connection status is connected. And you can see the last connection was made just a few minutes ago, really just about a few seconds ago. Okay, so this looks good, but it's not enough. It's not enough. So you checked it, it all looks good. Now you need to log out of your live database, log into your offline ticket entry, activate a drawer in offline, bring some for real sales or fake sales, either one is fine. Wait a few minutes for the data to sync, launch your live copy, and make sure those tickets made it down to the live copy. If they did and you want to keep them, keep them. You can post them at the end of the night. If you don't want to keep them because you were just testing, then go ahead and void them. But do test offline ticket entry before you actually need it, because sometimes then it's just a little too late. All right, let's go back here. And so hopefully your takeaways, you know how to get help in more than one way, be it F1, be it the NCR website, be it C&K Systems. Hopefully you learned some time-saving shortcuts, dates, column designer, and also how to use the Work Center for auditing. So I always love your feedback, love your topic suggestions. When you get the link to your recording on Friday, there will be a survey attached. You can go ahead and fill out that survey. You can remain anonymous. It's very quick to fill out. Also share your topics that you would like to see in the future. If you want to fill out the survey today, go directly to our website, www.cksystem.com/training bytes survey. Next month, August the 2nd, we are going to take an item record deep dive. So if you look at an item record, everyone just typically sticks to like the main tab, where they put in their price, their cost, category, vendor. But what about those 7 or 8 other tabs? What do they all do? What about those buttons at the bottom? let's say prices or vendor item records. So join me August the 2nd, and we'll talk about all of that. To get customized training, customized to your business, customized to your data, give me a call at the main number, extension 3, or email training@cksystem.com. Okay, let's take a look at the Q&A. And I don't see any questions in the Q&A. Double check. That's a good. Oh no, Hope has a question. How do you give access to someone to the work center? Hope, that's a great question. It's in your menu code. And you need to be kind of familiar with menu codes in order to do this. And there is a webinar on this, by the way. So when you get your link to the recordings, there's a whole webinar dedicated to menu codes. But it's basically here under setup, system, and menu codes. And it's not a person, it's a group. So menu codes are typically groups of people. So if I wanted to give my second key group access to the work center, I would just come here into the menu editor. And I would just drag the system folder over to the custom menu for that second key and strip out what I don't need just by, highlighting it and pressing my delete key. But the work center would be over here. Okay, so there's the work center right there. And Hope, if you don't feel like watching that webinar, just log a support ticket. We'll help you out with that. Okay, how do you find table view? Table view is pretty much everywhere in Counterpoint. So if I go to items, or I go to customer, or I go to purchasing document, or receiving document, your toolbar will have a table view. So it's this icon that looks like a piece of grid paper. That's how you find your table view. And again, everywhere in Counterpoint, anywhere where there's a toolbar, you will see table view. Is there a way to import multiple new product SKUs via CSV file or template? There is, but it's not something I would cover in the in a webinar. There's too many variables depending on the client need. So the short answer is yes, but it's not as simple as my short answer. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. For credit cards. Oh no, this is from June. Okay, so I got all the new ones out. So the way this Q&A works is your old questions go to the bottom, and logically your new ones go to the top. All right, super duper. I'm going to just check the chat window, and I don't see anything there. Okay, does anyone else have any questions?
I had a question, but it doesn't show, I guess.
Did you put it in the Q&A, Chantal?
Yes, I did. I asked.
Did you press enter?
Yes, I did.
Go ahead and ask anyway. Go ahead, Chantal.
Yeah. Can we have quantity on hand in the lookup menu?
I configured that for you. I'm positive. It is a configuration to the data dictionary, but it matters where you're at. And if you don't have it, Chantal, after I show you this, just send me an email. I'll give you a call and I'll help you. But
all right. Okay.
I'm like, I set this up for like every new client. So here I'm on an item record. And in order to see my quantities, I have to go to this magnifying glass on the item number line. So this one isn't going to help you. This one up here is not going to help. It has to be this one. And I don't have my data dictionary configured, so it's not here. But when you go into the lookup on the item number line, if your data dictionary is configured, you'll see quantity available, quantity on hand, maybe even quantity on POs. That is not available in table view at all. Only in the lookup, and the lookup specifically on the item number line. So yeah, Chantel, just let me know. I'm happy to help you out with that.
Okay, thanks.
You are welcome. Oh, Chantel, I just saw your Q&A pop up. You just had to go
Yes, through
to
the states, it takes longer
Bogota
to get there,
first.
right?
That's right. Okay, does anyone else have a question? All right, well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I'll see you August the 2nd, I hope. Okay, everyone, have a great day.